took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States of America. By some, he's been called controversial.
I'll keep my freedom, I'll keep my guns, try to keep my money and my religion too. Now, keep in mind that some of my guests have been approached by, Homeland Security or FBI saying, why are you going on the Clay Douglas show?
My message to those guys, if they're listening this morning, is go get a cup of coffee. Maybe you'll learn something.
We both took the same oath, to defend the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I don't recall there being an expiration date on that. I'm going to keep my big BA, keep my friends the same, keep the government out of my business, and y'all can keep the change.
He is the free American, Clay Douglas.
We know what we need, we know who to blame.
Catch the Free American Hour, weekdays at 7 a.m. Pacific, 10 a.m. Eastern.
That's enough of that. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, Clay Douglas. My guest today is Chris Strunk. He's with the Brooklyn Home Rule Coalition. Hello, Chris. How are you?
Good morning, Clay. And another bright, shiny, sunny morning in New York. Raring to go this week. I've got a long list of things that I'm going to do this week. Some of them might be found interesting by your listeners. The Tea Party out here is sort of limping along. The Democrats and the Republicans are like a sea anchor, and they're always looking for a forum in which to slow things down. I spent yesterday attending various political presentations by candidates, and not any of them really were discussing the true dire straits that this country is in. For the last 3 years, I've been chasing the handlers of this jackanapes Obama, who, as a puppet, has got some very interesting handlers out of Chicago and Europe and out of Italy and in New York, and certainly, I think we've all experienced a operationally ineffective Washington. And the real question is it planned that way, or is it operating the way it should to be inefficient and totally unresponsive to the American people and our needs?
In the conversation that I published and printed between James Forrestal, Secretary of Defense, Assistant Secretary of Defense, and Joe McCarthy, McCarthy made a comment about the communists being stupid, and the Forrestal didn't agree with him. He said, no, consistency is not the mark of stupidity. If they were just stupid, occasionally they'd make a mistake in our favor. I think everything is absolutely planned. I think everything is going right along schedule. I mean, I've been keeping track of this whole New World Order bullshit since the words left George Bush's mouth, and they're right on track. I mean, if you go back and read the Bible, everything that is happening right down to the mark of the beast is happening right now. And you say, I would have to ask if the Bible was prophecy or if it was a plan. What do you think?
Well, I've read a piece on Albert Pike, and now there was a man to draw a full house to. You know, he had predicted World War I in the 1870s. He had predicted World War I, World War II, and World War III.
That's right.
And so far, he's got the first two wars right, and he's very close to the third war. Question is, because he was a operational Satanist, you know, if he wasn't, who was he? Who was speaking to him to really give him that sort of planned overview, and who's organized in the world to lay out a plan that covers 100 years, 150 years ahead of time? And I know of only one organization that does that, and I mean organization, and there's no mystery to it. And of course, I pinned the crown of thorns on the top of the head of the Jesuit Order, and they definitely need to be outed as a group of insidious people.
Well, just thinking about that Jesuit Order right now, you know, this is the basically the Secret Service, the power behind the power of the Catholic Church, isn't it?
They are absolutely the paramilitary organization, which are the shadows of every world leader. Anywhere you go, you put in that leader's name and you put the word Jesuit behind it, and I'd say 7 times out of 10 you're going to get a name of a Jesuit, and you can almost bank on it that all that happened. It's like you put in the name Albert Pike and a Jesuit after it, and the name of his Jesuit will pop right out. Everything that Albert Pike did was connected into the Templar Order, which was taken over by James II and his Jesuit friends in Paris, where he reconstituted, with permission of the papacy, the Templar position in control at the top of the pyramid. So, yeah, you mentioned Forrestal. And the man walked out a window to many stories down to his death. And that I believe that he was an honest man who was about to do something to prevent what he saw coming down the pike, and they killed him. And that his son believes that was the case too. Well, I see the ultimate communists are the monastic order of the Jesuits, if they were monastic. Problem is they're not. They're actually a military organization, and that their act of obedience to their general, General Nicholas at this point, is and their act of celibacy is the model of all communism, as a Spartan model. And if you look at Sparta and how the organization of men and women and children were put in place, the men preferred to be with men and women with women, and children were the property of the state. And that's certainly what the Jesuit order represents. It represents the destruction of family. It represents the destruction of individual willpower, and anything they can do, they're out to destroy it.
I have pointed out, you know, that we attacked Iraq, we bombed the hell out of Iraq, we killed hundreds of thousands of Iraqi citizens that had never done anything to us. They weren't amassed on our borders, ready to invade us, but the Mexicans are, and the Mexicans, the illegal aliens that are being driven up here by NAFTA and some of the other bullshit. They destroyed their family farms the same way they've destroyed family farms in America. And those are, we're being invaded by Catholics, aren't we?
Well, what normally one would think as a Christian, I wouldn't consider a Catholic a Christian, I would consider it a potpourri, a mixed bag of tricks, including Santeria and cutting chickens and doing all sorts of stuff. A real mixed bag of pagan worship cults and practices, and certainly the Catholic religion has capitalized and monetized keeping its seats warm, the pews warm in its churches in order to make a lot of money. They cashed in on that, and certainly the Freemasons of Mexico, who are very tightly tied into the Jesuit Order, see their population control problems as get rid of your poor and your indigent and send them north as a battering ram in the United States. It's definitely an invasion. Arizona is, and Texas and New Mexico and California are suffering the greatest damage as a result of that. And we're at war. We are absolutely at war, Clay. And there's what they call the bull dyke in charge of the Homeland Insecurity, Napolitano. She is a Dame of Malta. Everybody around Obama is connected in some manner.
Hang on, I lost you. You need to repeat that. Again, when we start getting right to
what's happening in Europe, that's the way things are going. Europe is a disgusting place from my standpoint. But look, I certainly think that that at a certain point, when the dollar is put into a tailspin, and it's coming reasonably quickly because of the inability of the European banks to meet their short-term obligations, not even to mention the long-term obligations, that the push to World War III, every time that the economy is pushed to the edge, the power structure, we've had Bush 1, 2, 3, and now we have Bush 4. They push for a new war to get our
oops. We just I just lost you there for a second here. The computer is giving me hell, folks, just to let you know. There we go. Now we're trying to get hooked back up again. Okay, we're trying to get all these calls back up here, folks. Okay. Yes, we are trying to call back in. Yes, I see the little window. And we are trying to call back in. Okay. I think I'm still here. And something's working. One thing's working here. Let's,
Hello?
hello, Chris. I'm trying to get back up here. Hang on here. I've just it's crashed on me, and I've got 15 things I'm trying to get back up here. So
Okay, very
hold
good.
on just a second.
All right.
Okay. Like I said, I've been struggling with this since 2 o'clock this morning. So
Yeah. What's the prognosis? What do you think's going on?
I don't know. I've got a guy that'll come take a look at it. I got a guy that'll come take a look at it, and we're trying to get back up here. And may have to do this one. I'll call you back.
Okay.
Since it appears you're calling back a live show, we are reconnecting you now.
Welcome to Talk Show. Please enter the call ID followed by the pound key. You may access the...
We're back on?
Almost. Hang on.
Okay.
Enter your PIN followed by... You are now joining the call.
Recorded live.
Okay, we're back. We're back, and my guest is
You are unmuted.
Chris Strunk, and we're talking about the Jesuits right now. We're talking about, you know, I question everything, Chris, and I did a story a long time ago about the Pauline Christianity. From somebody in the seminary student said this information is not for the public, we don't want you to know. And they were talking about the Pharisee Saul who became the Apostle Paul. And the only thing we've got his testimony that, oh, Jesus came to him on the road to Damascus. That Pauline Christianity became the Catholic Church, and then the Jesuits pretty much took over the Catholic Church. Is that accurate so far?
Well, I don't profess to be a biblical historian, and I do know that the Jesuits were a result of the requirement by the Farnese family, the Borgias, who were controlling the papacy at that time, were to launch a concerted military effort against the Reformation. And I don't know that there is a direct connection between the Jesuits in any way other than Satan and assuming the mantle of the Templar Order. So that I'll have to defer to your background and your knowledge on Saul, as you say, Paul. Certainly, I believe that Jesus Christ was a real person on earth, and that he's done more to change our history than any other person that I know of in history.
But he warned us. He warned us about. There was two things there. You know, the Council of Nicaea, they promoted him to God because they did. I think, personally, because they didn't want men like you and I to aspire to be the kind of man he was. And he was the first rebel that you know, kicked the money changers out of the temple, and he solved the problem we got today. That's how do you fight evil without becoming evil.
Well, I would agree that he showed his anger and he showed his wrath against the money changers in the temple. And that was an exception. Of all the things he ever did, that was probably the exception that we look at the most. And as you mentioned, I'm about to sue the Federal Reserve this week on to verify some very questionable bond offerings that are in the control of the Italian government. And that, well, when I look at all of the stories and the disinformation and the misinformation that are involved in telling the story of Christ, and there's those that even say that he wasn't even crucified until, 1053. There's a Russian working on that one. I have to look at the Gnostic philosophy or the Gnostic belief system, which flows to the whole Masonic, the Satanist practice, Luciferian practice, and how there was a movie out, Zeitgeist, which essentially said that Christ didn't exist and that in fact he was just a retooling of the Isis or Osiris cult from Egypt and Babylon. Look, I can merely speculate. I have absolutely no evidence as to anything other than I believe that the United States, if it were not to have a belief in God rather than a king, we would still be serfs under a monarchy system, and that we needed something as solid as a belief system, if you can say it's solid, in God, so that we are born in the image of God, and we are given inalienable rights, which in all intents and purposes in our lifetime, the government is our government, and it's in service to us. People forget that, and they forget. They don't take an oath to the flag and to say they take an oath to the Constitution, which is an idea. It's not. It is an idea as God is an idea. So that I don't really have the tools at this point. I was not raised a Christian. I'm not a Christian. I'm an applied Christian. I see something that works, but one of the things I don't think works is that Christians are too forgiving, and they turn the other cheek in a way which I think Christ understood to be, fool me once, shame on me. Fool me twice, shame on you.
Well, that's the essence of the Pauline Christianity. Be a good slave. Don't rebel against your masters.
Right. Well, that's what we did. We rebelled against our European masters, and the whole insidious nature of what happened to us between 1774 and 1787 is that 1788 in effect, we allowed, through our own tolerance and our own desperate efforts to finance the revolution, we accepted the presence and the modifications to the original draft of the Declaration of Independence, which in fact wanted to rid slavery. Now, it was very clear, 25% of the Declaration written by Jefferson, and Jefferson understanding that the nation would not survive by keeping men in slavery, because it was a contradiction in terms by allowing slavery to continue, as King George was working directly with the Jesuits and with the Barbary pirates, which were the Berbers and the remnants of the pirates and the Templars, the skull and bones of the pirate orders, which were the remnants of the Templars, to uproot whole towns and villages and tribes and put them into slavery and send them here. And you can't have slavery and be a free people yourself. And I think Jefferson understood that, and he was doing a balancing act. He had a lot of flaws of his own, but that it was Charles Carroll of Maryland, one of the richest, from the richest families, Catholic families of Ireland, who was involved in the slave trade. They were making large amounts of money in working with King George and transporting slaves here for breakdown and reshipment. And that they said to Jefferson, along with Solomon Chase, who was a disgraced Episcopal financier, a banker, they as the delegation to the convention for the Declaration of Independence, they said, look, you can have one of two things, but you can't have them both. You can get rid of the king, or you can get rid of slavery, but you can't get rid of both. And by keeping that, if you look at the amendments to that Declaration of Independence, they did not attack slavery, and that was our downfall. The Jesuits had their hooks into us from that point on, because Charles Carroll's cousin was John Carroll. They and Jefferson were educated in France, and John Carroll was the first bishop of the United States as a Jesuit bishop, and that he was a very close friend with Benjamin Franklin. And the Carroll family made it quite clear, you're not going to get any money to fight your revolution if you try to destroy our slave trade. So that's a story you don't hear very often, Clay, but that I believe that we had the seed for our own defeat by keeping slavery.
Well, it's my opinion, Chris, that they have simply refined the art of slavery to the point that the slaves don't know they're slaves. I'm not a slave, man. I can go get my pickup and go get her. Watch. See, I'm not a slave. It's called economic slavery. It's called economic slavery, and every time you pay that tax on the gasoline, you pay that tax at the store, you pay this tax in your income tax, you're every time you're paying for your house 3 times over your lifetime. That's pretty much slavery, isn't it?
Well, I tell you, we're paying for the bridges around here in New York. I don't know how many times. We're paying like $13 to go across the bridge. $13, man. Now what they're doing is taking the money from one pocket and they're building this World Trade Center, this monstrosity. But look, when they started the Social Security system, they found a way to steal a person's identity on paper, where at birth people's big name is signed over by your mother on the back of your birth certificate to the use of the state. And the state turns around and sells it as a security with a lifetime earnings of about $635,000. And it holds true to $1935. Or 1935 value of the dollar. In a lifetime, you make about $635,000. Now, all that represents a constant flow of taxes and everything else, and that the people don't seem to realize that the states have joined in to sell the future of all our children, our children's children. And what to do about it? Well, that's something for a longer program, but if you look at some of the work that the creditors in commerce are doing and the need to become the controller of your big name security structure, where you go and you actually claim to be the trustee of your own name. And people are doing that, and there's a successful process in that. And that's what Warren Buffett does, and that's what a lot of the very wealthy people do, is that they use the paper side of their name, the private side of their account with the Treasury Department to print money. You know, everybody could be a banker of their own if they knew how to use the system through the Uniform Commercial Code. That's something I'm familiar with, and I'm actually working with people